Good morning and welcome all of your survivors. We are here. Let's all say hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
We're here. That's a criteria for me for having a great day. In spite of it all, every morning I start out and I say, thank you, God. Thank you, Sun. Thank you, Earth, for another day in paradise. And I didn't have to die to get there. But now we're getting a little bit of hell tossed in. So anyway, I'm grateful that you're all able to join us. I did try to phone everyone in the congregation. I don't have internet, and I got most of you, but not all. So we are reaching out, and as Regina explained, we're here for you, and we can do whatever we can to help each other. So my name is Joyce Rame, and I'll be leading our service today. And here you will find a diverse and inclusive spiritual community where we welcome people with many beliefs. You can bring your whole self and your full identity, your questioning mind, your expansive heart, and all the challenges of your life. At All Faiths, we have more than one way of experiencing the world and understanding the sacred. No matter who you are, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, and whomever you love, you are truly welcome here. Do we have any visitors here for the first or second time? Anybody that could discover us without a sign out front? Okay. I have a few announcements. There will be no child and youth program for the month of October. That will resume again in November. Almost all the meetings have been canceled for October, except the Finance Committee and the board meeting. And next Saturday, we did have a newcomers orientation scheduled, but that will be rescheduled. So Regina will continue to inform you about everything that's happening here. Next Sunday, we are scheduled to have a speaker from McGregor Clinic. I have not been able to confirm with her yet. I don't know yet about the McGregor Clinic collection because Joyce Schaefer and Wayne Robinson are staying with friends in Tampa. Their home was damaged down at Shell Point. So we'll let you know about that collection. Now I invite you all to rise in body, if they aren't broken yet, and in spirit, and sing together, enter, rejoice, and come in.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Our candle went out. Please recite the words in your order of service. As we light our challenge, let us remember We are all descendants of immigrants who came to this place in search of better lives. And now we're going to have our joys and sorrows, but today we're going to have some limitations. Nearly everyone suffered some kind of property damage. So what I'm asking is that you come forward and share stories of personal illness, personal injuries, weddings, babies, engagements, some joys, and you can exchange stories of your property damage afterwards. Does that make sense? Okay, so, and I do have a report on two. Fran and Bob Way's daughter, Sarah, who's had a chronic problem with her stomach, she was hospitalized with bleeding and vomiting blood, so she was in very bad shape. The other thing is on Tuesday, Donnelly Benyak suffered another stroke. She was at her daughter's house, and initially she was paralyzed on the right side, but her daughter, later in the week, her daughter said she is starting to recover some movement of her arm and legs, so she's making some progress. So I invite any of you to come forward to share about people, and hopefully we have some good news, and if there are any personal injuries or illnesses to report.
Hi, I'm Michelle Garrels. We're new to the church, but we're loving it. And gosh, in this time of hurricane, you see the devastation all over every community. And what I've noticed in ours, we live in Cape Coral, not unlike many communities, I'm sure, is the neighbors have come together so wonderfully. So many of them can't do enough for their neighbors or, you know, someone across town or whatever. And oh my gosh, it has truly been a blessing. So I thought important to say hurrah for what we're doing for each other.
Thank you so much. Good
Hi.
to have you back.
Thank you. It's great to be here. This is our first Sunday back. I'm Eileen Moran. And first of all, I want to thank so many of you sent notes of condolences when our son died this summer, and I really appreciate it. But the good news is our oldest grandson is 35, and finally he got engaged. He's been wanting to for a long time. He just hasn't found the right woman. And she has a 5-year-old, so we're going to have an instant great-granddaughter.
Okay, we'll light a candle for that good news.
Hey, I'm Carol Heilsberg. I just want to express not just my gratitude, but my astonishment at how the first responders, the electrical and water technicians, the law enforcement, the government agencies have just been putting forth Herculean efforts to restore all of our basic needs.
Depth perception.
Yeah, well, it's true.
Good morning, I'm Lori, and this is my daughter Ainsley, and she is the joy that I share with all of you. But she wanted to go to her school and do some cleanup, and the building manager would not let us on the campus to do that. And so when we left, I said, we can still do cleanup. Maybe we can do some cleanup at church like Grampy did. For those of you who don't know, John Conrad is my dad. And she said, can we go now? So we were already in the car. We drove straight here and decided to clean up the memorial garden so that everybody could visit their old friends, Lloyd and Priscilla and Hanif and everyone else who has a brick out there. And while we were doing it, we found about 50, I think it's 100, Ainsley thought it was 50, of these little air plants. And so we asked Judy if it was okay. We're going to do a fundraiser. So anyone who would like to take one of these home with them today, please feel free to put money into the, I'm going to call it the Wayne Robinson box at the books right now. So that'll go to the minister's discretionary fund. And if you just go out and look, Ainsley has put these in other plants, and it's the cutest thing ever. Will you like the candle? I will light the candle.
And thank you for taking care of the memorial garden for us. That's wonderful. Annalie.
Good morning. Boy, this is so good to see you all. Well, I did a law-breaking thing. It's against my HAO rules to feed the animals, but the birds can't find any insects. The squirrels can't find anything because everything where I live has been destroyed. All the big oak trees are down. So I went and I bought a big bag of bird food and I scattered it out there. Well, I have now a squirrel circus going on in my backyard. I have blue jay circus going on in my backyard. So I don't care if they find me. I don't care. I will keep doing this until after the first good rain and until I see some green growing on the trees again. And this is what I'd like to say. The animals are suffering just as much as we do. So if you can do a little illegal bird seed scattering, please do. And as an afterthought, I would like to give Regina my very, very personal thanks. She checked up on me every day. Every day. She is our strength. She's our rock. Thank you.
Thank you, Annalie. Greg.
It's a good morning for Joyce. So anyone who knows me, I'm Greg Monk, and a sometimes absentee member, but I'm glad to be here this morning. I have one less app on my phone and a little more time on my plate because I have now officially moved from student to alumni. I'm finally a college graduate at 55, so as of this week. So, and it's not something I could have done without a lot of support. So for those that have been very kind in dealing with my crazy schedule, I'm very appreciative. So thank you.
And I believe Greg and Cameron are having a special day on November 6th.
We are hoping to. Our venue, the Lakes Park, is not open, but whether we have an event or whether we just go to the courthouse, this will be official very soon. So,
So congratulations.
thank you.
Good morning. I would like to thank all the immigrants who have been out there with their chainsaws, cleaning up and cutting around. Forget how this works.
Good morning, I'm John Conrad. Some of you might know, but my wife, Sandy, has lived in memory care for 4 years. Coming next month will be 4 years. And where she was living in memory care, they had to evacuate for 5 or 6 days to a medical office building. And then they came back to Cypress Cove where she lives, but the memory care facility was flooded, so they had to move into a second evacuation site at Cypress Cove, 3 to 4 residents to a bedroom. That's where she is now. And this past week, though, my joy, this is all a joy. My joy is I saw her 3 times this past week where she is currently residing. And when she came out of the building to see me, she recognized me immediately. There was no question. And she gave me some of the best hugs of our marriage.
I'm lighting this candle for all of you here and all of our members who have suffered significant loss of your homes, your memorabilia, family photos. Some of our people have pretty much lost everything, but as far as I know, they're all okay. And most people are finding places to stay in the meantime. If you have space or can offer hospitality to our people who need it, that would be very much appreciated. So, and I'm lighting this candle for all of you who have joys and sorrows in your heart. Ask everyone to close your eyes, take a deep breath, turn our hearts and minds to today's service, and contemplate our blessings, all of the things that we still have and the beloved people we still have in our lives. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing together, Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Today we're going to be talking about immigration. Lewis Robinson will be giving our sermon. Our opening words are the New Colossus by Emma Lazarus, found at the Statue of Liberty. This particular Statue of Liberty has meaning to me because it was bought by my second husband in New York City, my Pakistani husband. And he loved that, and he took it to him to every country he ever lived in. So this is the Statue of Liberty. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land, here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor the twin cities frame. Keep ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of these teeming shores. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. And now we will have our prelude by our very talented Carlos Garcia.
I have changed it to blowing in the wind, so as I ask or sing these 9 questions to you, please refrain or give me the answer, which is the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. It's just 9 questions, the entire song. How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? Yes, and how many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? Yes, and how many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, how many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? Yes, and how many ears must one man have before he can hear people cry? Yes, and how many deaths will take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, how many years was mountain exists before it is washed to the sea? Yes, and how many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? Yes, and how many times can a man turn his head, pretending he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. One more time. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Thank you, Carlos. Blowing in the wind. We had a lot of that this recently. Our reading today is Finding Support in the Journey to Asylum by Laura Randall. She's the Director of Congregational Relations of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. Arriving at the U.S. border is only one step in the arduous journey to safety for people fleeing violence in their home country. Although seeking asylum is a human right, it is a complicated process with numerous barriers and a low probability of success. Many who are struggling to survive can find themselves in a new situation that is isolating and re-traumatizing, spending months in detention. Those who are released to wait for their case to be heard face restrictions on work permits, have trouble finding housing due to a lack of rental history and credit, incur massive medical bills because they lack insurance, and are often ineligible for public benefits. UUSC's Congregational Accompaniment Project for Asylum Seekers is an example of how allied UUs across the country are working with asylum seekers to provide community-based alternatives to detention, bolstering the ongoing work of frontline communities and immigration activists. For instance, the Boise UU Fellowship demonstrated how compassion and coordination can weave a web of support for asylum seekers. They sponsored a Roberto, a gay man who escaped a life-threatening kidnapping in Honduras. And upon arrival in the United States, Roberto had limited access to legal counsel and many injuries. For 2 years, the Boise UU Fellowship provided housing, helped him integrate to the community, and accompanied him through the legal process. This is part of the work we are called to do when we witness injustice and oppression, to act compassionately and decisively, creating more stories of welcome. Please rise in body and spirit as we sing together hymn number 95, There Is More Love Somewhere.
There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep
duplicate much of what Joyce already said, but I want to make sure that we raise the Statue of Liberty and that we remember what it means. I want to thank the congregation for allowing me to give the sermon today. Today's talk was primarily about external migration, but today we are suffering a crisis of internal migration, secondary mostly to climate change, almost Category 5 hurricane, a crisis, as I said, of migration for most of us. We are all, as was already mentioned, migrants, and we are migrants in this particular crisis, traumatized. So we must take the time to take care of ourselves and take care of others. We can imagine also how migrants in other countries, in other regions, with less support, less infrastructure, suffered in situations as we have. Their suffering, believe me, was great. And I bring to mind Puerto Rico, return again a second time. We said America is a nation of immigrants. But we must remember that America evolved and was built with slaves, traumatized. They built the land and the institutions. And that America colonialized parts of Mexico and its people. And the suffering, the trauma we committed. And we moved the natives from their territory. They were traumatized as migrants. Remember that. I am also a product of a great migration from south to north. Never forget. And today, as was mentioned, the migrants or the labor building and rebuilding the trauma that was produced by this crisis. So let me begin. Immigration, a harsh search for a better life. To migrate and to seek asylum are both human rights. Migration today is very political, very traumatizing in the host countries. When most people migrate, they are seeking a better quality of their life. Today, it's taken very seriously because it is a serious cost. It is a serious cost both to the people and to the nations of the country of origin. They lose their youth, their talent, their finance in support of people migrating for a better opportunity. Okay. So it's a very costly event. Migration is usually internal. External migration, as I said, is costly. The character of the people who migrate are usually the young, the healthy, and the talented. And they depend on others from where their origin is. Because seeking asylum is a human right, and it is a complicated process and a traumatizing process, as Joyce already mentioned. Today we will talk primarily about the external migration, which is arising primarily out of three areas. War-torn areas, Ukraine, Syria. out of Africa north, out of the east and the northwest to Europe, and the migration across our southern border. Migration out of Ukraine has been primarily to Europe and local countries. There's been few coming across our southern border. The migration out of continental Africa has been primarily helped by smuggling across the Mediterranean. They face trauma at the border, getting out of that northern border of Africa. Africa is a continent on the move with economic growth, but problems. There is opportunity, but the population is rapidly growing, almost doubling instantly. There's conflict, instability, environmental catastrophes, war, poverty, political instability, criminals. Migration tends, as I said, to be external, but it's always at a loss. Much of what we see, as I said, is coming across with the help of smuggling into Europe. Migration across our southern border. Our southern border serves to attract many who are going through purgatory. For many, this is a very dangerous journey, traversing criminal minefields and deserts. But even once they reach our border, they are not safe, as Joyce already mentioned. They go through periods where they may be confined and they may be punished. Social inadequacy, etc., always facing them, and brutality from our own system and our police. The social conditions in most Western countries, as in the United States, also are not supporting. What we have confronting them is mostly a belief in what is called the replacement theory. Never mind that migrants seeking asylum is a human right. We build walls to serve to deter migrants, whom we describe as rapists, criminals, drug-carrying thugs. Never mind statistics that show migrants seeking asylum are 20% less to commit crimes than most Americans. And those who are able to get asylum are 60% less to commit crimes than most Americans. And never mind that most drugs are coming across by vehicles, even up to submarines, coming across our border, not by human transport. Early periods of migration was primarily from migrants primarily from Mexico. We probably have forgotten the 1850s when we colonized much of Mexico. And there was a Treaty of Guadalupe. These people are again traumatized because of the wall building. They're traumatized because the commerce is interrupting and their lives are again interrupted by building walls. But that's the way that we're suffering. The next period was 1980, 1990 that I want to point out, where there was great turmoil. And some terms I would like you to remember if you do not remember. The Monroe Doctrine, and also the Panama Canal was one of the great stimulation points of the trauma in that area. But names such as Manuel Ortega, who is still there in Nicaragua. I'm sorry, Daniel Ortega. Manuel Noriega, colonel from Panama, the previous leader of Panama, who consequently died in prison in the United States with questionable history of drug involvement, who implicated the United States and certain presidents in the war in Panama when there was destruction of evidence which he said was related to our malfeasance. Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, our President Ronald Reagan, and the Iran-Contra affair. Again, the association of all that with the Panama Canal. And Panama itself, a previous territory of Colombia, which we seem to have separated, and the elite, all in interest of building that canal, which really didn't make Nicaragua feel very good, since they were the second choice in the area to build that canal. So they suffered. Well, there were periods of war and drugs, civil war. Nicaragua, Panama, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, later joined by Colombia, all in that group of countries, war, suffering. Also in that period, Cuba and Haiti. Still ongoing, we have an embargo against Cuba, which very much disturbs that area and the Caribbean. Forgive me if I'm being political. Cuba being the gem of the Caribbean, the whole area suffers. And they recently sustained damage from the hurricane, and Nicaragua is being hit by a hurricane now, but that's. And while I mention that, these are people with less abilities to sustain themselves than us. The situation seems to repeat itself. Those with less ability to stand up to the trauma are those who are traumatized most. They suffer repeatedly, and that is, I see, as a problem. We praise government here in America, and I don't want to be political, but it is the poor and the less fortunate. And we have to see that. Even today, as we rebuild, the poor, and the less fortunate are the ones who will be traumatized most. But let's not do that today. The period 2000-2020 was dominated by environmental catastrophes, hurricanes, earthquakes, droughts. And we can add to that the pandemic. There were 2 Category 5 hurricanes, Eta and Lota, in the northern triangle, which was El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, particularly was hit hard. Not only were they hit hard by that trauma, but they're also suffering from a drought. That is also called the drought corridor. It seems that the suffering shows up at our southern border, and that's what we're seeing, including Haiti, Cuba, Africa, and Venezuela, where they're having political upheaval as well as catastrophes. And some Ukrainians are showing up. The reason for migration, as I said, are multiple. Food insecurity, political insecurity, violence of all sorts, and I mentioned the pandemic, where there was a lack of care, the lack of immunizations, etc. Also, for many coming across our southern border, they're trying to reunite with families that came before. The year 2022 was particularly special for migrants. There had been a regime which has, there had been a government which had been particularly harsh. Their hope was with the change of government, and that this year is the year of the Summit of Americas, that there was new emphasis and new potential for migrants to get asylum, and that was their increased hope. And that's why we saw the caravans headed for our border. The situation did not clear particularly fast for them, particularly because of the pandemic. There was still Title 42, which required people to remain outside of the country. And then we enacted the Remain in Mexico policy. And I think the current administration is still trying to work through that Remain in Mexico policy. But most migrants, as we saw the trauma there with the horsebacks and all that, most migrants were returned to their country of origin. Many, however, did cross, and some crossed the border several times, and they were turned back. But this gave us an increased count in the number of migrants crossing the border. So this was not to say a pleasant time for migrants or for the people living in the border area. But in addition, there was a new complex problem: the entrance of organized crime. Organized crime was both transporting, or should I say, smuggling migrants across the border, smuggling people, and also mass numbers. We had at least 2 mass suffocations of people in that area, in vehicles, trucks, etc. Organized crime is also active on the other side of the border, where they are capturing people, putting them in their own confinement, and demanding restitution from people in their country of origin. So there is a lot going on. Drugs are being brought in at the portals by vehicles because they have the ability to get security, whatever, cooperation with organized crime to bring in drugs. Our UU, Unitarian Universalist Association associates, their Immigration Justice Committee has some ideas for our congregation. They want to remind us that immigration is a moral issue and that we stand on the side of love. Love and resist. Compassion, solidarity. No one, not one more deportation. Sanctuaries, new sanctuary movements and being creative. Social justice. The UU College of Social Justice Service and Learning are sponsoring trips where one can go to the border, get knowledge, insight, and work in the border area. The ACLU and many organizations, including our UU alliances, are working to end the entanglement and oppression of migrants, as Joyce previously mentioned. And I want to remind us of the relationship between ICE and local sheriffs. Local sheriffs are profiling migrants, and any migrants who commit any disparity, anything that they can charge them with. Once they have been finished their period of confinement, they're usually then turned over to ICE, who confines them again. And this is a very destructive process. And as George previously mentioned, migrants are also constantly being, although they are financially depressed, they have the same problems that most others have in our environments. The need of shelter, medical care, employment, social service needs, but they are subject to the political charge rule. They can't access care. If they do, they are subject to punishment, confinement, deportation. This is essentially a wealth tax. Here in the United States, we are working, as stated before, with a number of groups, our UU is, providing accompaniments and support to people under immigration and customs enforcement detention. It is absolutely an outrage that so many people, including children, remain locked up in immigration jails. People have a human right, as we stated, to migrate, and they have a clear legal right to apply for asylum. We must practice our faith and in keeping with our beloved community. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation, Louis. We appreciate it so much. And now our morning offering will be taken, and in the month of October, the beneficiary of our Heart for Homeless team is All Souls, and you can imagine they'll be having a lot of demand for help for the homeless people. So our morning collection will now be taken.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping left its seed while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. In restless dreams I've walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone, neath the halo of a street lamp. I turned my collar to the cold and damp, when my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more, people talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs that voices never share, and no one dare disturb the sound of silence. Fool said, I do not know. Silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words that I might teach you. Take my arms that I might reach you. But my words like silent raindrops fell and echoed in the wells of silence. And the people bowed and prayed to the neon god they made. And the sign flashed out its warning in the words that it was for me. And the sign said the words of the prophet are written on the subway walls and tenement halls, and whispered in the sounds of silence.
Thank you, Carlos. I can tell you that silence was really welcome after the roar of the hurricane. Our closing words are from John Steinbeck. Grapes of Wrath was written by John Steinbeck in 1939, the year of my birth. It's the story of a family displaced by the drought and Dust Bowl years of the Great Depression in hopes of better life. They go to California, where they are again oppressed by ruthless landowners. One of the very first movies that I recall was Grapes of Wrath, and I was moved deeply by the words of Tom Joad to his mother when he is leaving. They sat silent in the coal-black cave of vines, and Ma said, "How am I gonna know about you? They might kill ya, and I wouldn't know. They might hurt ya. How am I gonna know?" Tom laughed uneasily. "Well, maybe like Casey says, a fella ain't got a soul of his own, but only a piece of a big one. And then what, Tom? Then it don't matter. Then I'll be around in the dark. I'll be everywhere, wherever you look. Wherever there's a fight so hungry people can eat, I'll be there. Wherever there's a cop beating up a guy, I'll be there. If Casey knowed, why, I'll be in the way guys yell when they're mad, and I'll be in the way kids laugh when they're hungry and they know supper's ready. And when our folks eat the stuff they raise and live in the houses they build, well, I'll be there. See? God, I'm talking like Casey. Comes a thinking about him so much. Seems like I can see him sometimes.
Every man has a season, everything has its time. Show me a reason and I'll soon show you a rhyme. Cats fit on the windowsill, children fit in the snow. Why do I feel I don't fit in anywhere I go? Rivers belong where they can ramble. Eagles belong where they can fly. I've got to be where my spirit can run free. Gotta find my corner of the sky. Every man has his daydreams, every man has his goal. People like the way dreams have us sticking to the soul. Rain comes after thunder, winter comes after fall. Sometimes I think I'm not after anything at all. Rivers belong where they can ramble. Eagles belong where they can fly. I've got to be where my spirit can run free. Gotta find my corner of the sky. And maybe some misty day you'll waken to see me gone. And far away you'll hear me singing to the dawn. And wonder if I'm happy there, a little more than I've been. And the answer will come back to you like laughter in the wind. Rivers belong where they can ramble. Eagles belong where they can fly. I've got to be where my spirit can run free. Gotta find my corner of the sky.
Thank you, Carlos. I get really choked up and filled with tears when I think of migrants. When I was in Pakistan, moved to Pakistan in 1988, I went up and visited the refugee camps. There were 3 million refugees from the Afghan wars living in tents by the Khyber Pass. And I'll never forget it. It just, when I was a child at the end of World War II, we had we called them DPs, displaced persons. And neighbors, there was a Latvian girl, there was a girl in my class from Ukraine, from all of the refugees when the Soviets took over Eastern Europe. This is an ongoing human story, and we really have to care. As Louis gave a wonderful, wonderful message to us today about how traumatizing it is for people who are displaced. So please hold them in your thoughts. And Louis, we thank you so much for your beautiful message today. Carlos, thank you. And Brad on sound, and Regina on the camera, and whoever brought the flowers today. And I know Dottie Mail brought water, and I think Annalie brought bagels, and we have lots of treats out there for everybody to enjoy afterwards. So Marge, would you come forward as we extinguish the chalice? Join in reciting our words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world. Go now in peace, and may you all be blessed and sustained through all of the trauma that you are facing, and help each other and all your loved ones and neighbors in whatever way you can. We are survivors. We will get through this. And just remember, we are each other's keepers. thank you very much, and just continue on, and we look forward to seeing you next Sunday. Thank you very much. And Becky and Michelle and Bob Moore, would you please come? I have some things to discuss with you.